In this video, we are going to be building an AI Career Coach Chatbot. A user is going to be required to input some information like their interests, their skills, their degree, and some other information. And based on this information, the AI chatbot is going to recommend a career path. So we're going to be fine-tuning a large language model, and the model we're going to be fine-tuning is LLaMA 2. This is going to allow us to train the model on a specific data set, and the data set we're going to be using is a careers recommendation data set. So it has information about a lot of careers. And I'm going to show you the data set we're going to be training the model on. Now, the reason we are doing this rather than just using a base model is so that our fine-tuned model can be more effective in career recommendation. So after training it on this careers recommendation data set, it's going to have a lot more information in recommending careers based on interests, skills, and other information. So in general, this fine-tuned model is going to be more effective than a base model, because a base model just has a general information for this specific use case. To be able to do this, we're going to use Gradient. Gradient is the sponsor of this video, and it allows you to easily fine-tune open source large language models. And I'm going to show you how to do that in this video. The first thing we need is our data set. So as I said, we're going to be using a career recommendation data set, and I'm getting this data set from Kaggle. So Kaggle is a platform that allows you to access a ton of data set that you can use to train your model. It can be a machine learning model or a large language model, or whatever you're doing, you can get a lot of data sets from Kaggle. So I downloaded this particular data set, and although there are some information we don't need here for this particular fine-tuning, like a user's name, we don't really need that, and some other information. So I've downloaded it, and what I did was that I cleaned up this particular data set. So right here, I have this truncated career recommendation data set. So I cleaned up this data set, and I'm going to leave a link in the description below where you can access this data set that I already cleaned up, so you can follow along with this tutorial. So I just opened up this data set, and as you can see, I've cleaned up some fields. I removed the field where it's asking for a username, and I just gave it better names for the titles. So as you can see right here, we have information about a user's course, if they have done an undergraduate course, if they specialize in any particular field, and their interest. It asks for their interest, and I'm just going to swipe. It asks for their skills. So this is just the undergraduate percentage, but I don't think we're going to actually use this in when we're asking a user for information. And also certifications, if they've learned anything, and if they are currently employed. And based on all of this information, is predicting a career path. So we're going to train this model on this particular data set, and we're going to create a fine-tuned model based on that. So this is going to allow this model to have more information on what data or on what career path suits some specific information. Now we're going to come into Gradient. So go to gradient.ai. I'll also leave the link in the description below, so you can just click on it and access it. Now once you're there, make sure you sign up for an account and then log in. Once you're logged in, you should see a dashboard like this. Now you're not going to have any workspace, but what I'm going to do is just to show you how to create a new workspace that we're going to be using for this particular tutorial. I'm going to click on create new workspace, and I'm just going to name this AI coach. And I'm just going to submit. Now this is going to create a new workspace. So as you can see, one workspace has been created, and the next thing is to have another access token. So we're going to come here and generate another access token later when I show you when we need it. Just going to come back to workspaces. Now right here, if I come here, as you can see, we are using Google Colab for this. Now you can run this on your local computer. You can run it anywhere you want to run it. Actually, it's just a piece of code, but I find it very easy to run this on Google Colab, as we can run each of the code in blocks. So I'm just going to explain what's going on right here. Before I do anything, I'm just going to refresh this page so it loads up this particular code again, and I can just explain everything from scratch. So as you can see, the page is loaded up, and the first thing that is, as you can see right here, is to install Gradient AI. So Gradient has an SDK, and we're going to be using the Python one. So this is how to install it. You just need to run pip install Gradient AI upgrade to install to the latest version. So I'm just going to run this, and this should install that for us. So we're just going to give that a second. It says requirement already satisfied. That's because it's already installed in this workspace. Good. Now the next thing we're going to do is to come in here. So I already have this code written, but I'm just going to explain everything line by line. So I'm going to increase this so you can see it properly. So we're just importing the necessary stuff. We're importing OS, CSV, and then from Gradient AI, which is this particular library that we just installed, we are importing Gradient. Now the next thing we need to do is to set the Gradient environment variables. So we need to set this so that the Gradient can access or can use my own account for the fine tuning. So I'm just going to connect this code basically to my Gradient account. So the first thing we need to do is to get the access token. I'm going to come back in here, and in access token, I'm just going to switch the tab, and I'm going to click on generate new token. So it's just going to ask for a password. Now, as you can see, the access token has been created. I'm just going to copy that access token. I'm going to come in here, and then I'm going to paste it. Once I'm going to revoke this access token once I have published this video. I'm going to quit this, and the next thing is to come to workspaces, and the workspace for this AI coach, we're going to need to copy the ID, and then we're going to come back in here, and then we're just going to paste this in. So this is what we need. We have set the environment variables. Now the next thing we need to do is to define the path to the CSV file. Now this CSV file is our career data set. Remember the career data set I showed you earlier in this video? We're going to use that right now. So for us to get this, we're going to have to come and open up this folder right here. So what I did was that I'm just going to come back in here. I dragged this particular truncated career recommendation data set, and I just pasted it right in here. So what you can just do is to drag this like this, and then just gonna swipe, and then you're just gonna drop this. But I already have that there, so I'm not gonna drop it. I'm just gonna put it back to where it was. So now that you have that, the next thing you're gonna do is to right click on it, and then you're gonna copy path. Once you have that done, you can close this back, and you're gonna come back in here where you have this career dataset path, and we're just gonna paste in that path. Now this is the path to that particular data set. I'm going to come down, and right here what we're just doing is initializing gradients so that we can use the gradient SDK. Now we are loading on the data set. Before we do that, we're just going to print to the user that we are loading this particular data set. So it's just going to say loading and formatting data. And what we're just doing is reading this data set. So created an empty list called formatted data. And what all of this is doing is just reading all the input from this particular data set. So if I come back in here, this is just using CSV to read it, and then we're looping through all the data set data. So I'm saying for row in data set data, then I'm creating a new variable called user data, and this user data is the input it requires from the user. So this is interest, this is skills, this is degree. If I swipe right here, you're gonna see this is we're asking if the user is working. So we have a lot of rows in this particular data set, but these are the only 4 information we want to ask from the user. So the interests, the skills, the degree if the user has an undergraduate course, and their employment status. So based on these 4 inputs, we're going to recommend a career data path. So what it's doing is it's reading every single input, and then it's looking at the corresponding career path and it's storing that in career response. So that will make it understand what particular career path is perfect for whatever input, right? And then after that, it's just formatting that data for fine-tuning. So if we come back in here, you're going to see we have inputs, and we're just going to have to put this in the format of LLaMA 2. So as I said, we're going to be using LLaMA 2 in this video. So we're fine-tuning LLaMA 2, and this is the format. So we have hashtag. We have the user data, which is going to be this user data, and then we're going to show the user the suggested career path based on their data. And the response is just the career response, which is this. Now we're just going to append this formatted data, which was this empty list we created. We're going to append this particular formatted entry into this particular list. Now that we've done that, we've done most of the path of just reading the data or inputting this data to that model. And right here, we're just going to have to create a base model. So this base model is basically asking us what model we want to fine tune on. So we're fine tuning LLaMA 2, as I said, and we're just going to say base equals gradient or get base model. And to get the base model, we're going to have to get the slug ID of that model. So I'm going to come in here. I'm just going to come here back to gradient homepage, and I'm going to go into documentation. So right here in documentation, if you come, I'm just going to come into guides, and I'm going to scroll down to where I see models. So right here, you're going to see all the models that gradient support. So as you can see, they support Bloom 560, LLaMA 2, and also this. Now we're going to be using LLaMA 2, but we're going to be using the advanced version, which is this, and this is the slug ID. So this is the particular ID that we need. I'm just going to copy it, and I'm going to just copy that, and I'm going to come back in here, and I'm going to replace that with this slug ID. I'm going to paste this in. Once again, in case I haven't said it, the link to this particular Google Colab will be in the description below, so you can just access the whole code. Now that we've done this, we're now going to create a new model adapter. So this model adapter is basically the fine-tuned model on this particular model that we are using. So this model is LLaMA 2, and this model adapter is like the name of the fine-tuned model. So as you can see, we're giving it a name, and this name we can just give it something like AI Career Chatbot, something like that, and that's going to create a new model adapter, giving it that name from the base model once again, which is LLaMA 2. And once we've done this, the next thing now is to actually fine-tune this particular model. So now, as you can see, it's just going to print to the user saying that we are fine-tuning the model adapter, and now it's going to split it into chunks. So the particular data set, a normal data set or an effective data set, should have a lot of entries and a lot of lines. I think this particular data set we're using has like 100. So actually it had over 1000, but I just cut it down to 100 just for the sake of this video. So because it's going to have a lot of lines, it's not going to be effective to just run through every single line at once, or like fine tune based on every single line at once. So it splits it into chunk. So each chunk will represent 20 lines. So once it's done with one chunk, it goes to the next chunk. So basically once it's done with the first 20 lines, then it starts again with the second 20 lines, then it keeps going till it finishes that particular data set. So that is what chunk lines is for. And this total chunk is just basically getting the total chunk of that particular data set. So it's just going to get the whole length of that data set and basically just get how many chunks is required. Now it's going to loop through that particular total chunk, and it's going to fine tune it. So this is where we're actually fine tuning. So this is just going to print to the user the particular chunk that is being fine tuned, and it's going to tell the user the amount of chunks that is needed to be fine tuned, so the total amount. And this is the main line that is going to actually fine tune it. So we're saying new model adapter, which was a model adapter that we created, dot fine tune, and we're giving it the samples as this chunk right here. And we're just printing an error to the user if something went wrong. So now I'm just going to run this. I hope you understood everything I talked about right here. And once again, this is going to be available in the description below, so you can just take the code easily. Now I'm going to run this part so that we can actually fine tune this model. Now we're going to see the amount of chunks. So as you can see, it says it's fine tuning chunk 1 of 5. So we know it's going to have to fine tune 5 chunks, and each chunk is representing 20 lines. So this is going to take a while. It's not going to take too long because we just have 5 chunks. But I'm just going to be back when this has been fine-tuned completely. Now, as you can see, this has been fine-tuned completely and everything worked perfectly fine. There was no errors. If there was an error, it's going to print this, which says error in fine-tuning. But as you can see, everything says fine-tuning 1 of 5 all the way to 5 of 5. Now that is good and we have created this fine-tuned model, we can now test it out. So as you can see right here, the last block of code is just testing this and actually using this fine-tuned model. So right here it says user query, and it's just asking the user for the interests, the skills, the degree, and if the user is working. So right here we could just manually put in what we want. So let's say the user has skills in Python, and let's say the user has a bachelor's degree in, let's say, commerce. Now let's give you all of these details, and this is just a formatted query. So this is how, so as you can see, it says user data, which is this user query right here. So this is what is given into the model, and then it's going to complete it by recommending a suggested career path. So response equals new model adapter dot complete, as you can see, complete, and it's giving it this query, which is a formatted query, and it was just saying the maximum generated token count, and we're giving it 50. You could increase this or you could decrease this. Now we're printing out the whole answer right here, and what I'm just going to do is to run this, and this is actually going to run this information based on this new model that we've created. So let's give that a second, and that is going to run. Good. So as you can see, this ran successfully, and these are the interests that the user input, which was research, skills as Python, and bachelor's degree in commerce, and the user is not working. So now it says based on this information, a recommended career path is research analyst. And this is because they have a bachelor's in this, and it's basically just showing the user all of the information they gave us. But this is the recommended career path that is given. We could also input something else like saying computer science. So if I come in here and change, not actually the interest, let me say the user has a bachelor's degree in computer science. And let's just say interest in coding, and they are not currently working. Now let me run this again, and let's see the output it gives us this time around. So according to this, you could see that the user has interest in anything related to computer. So interested in coding, skills, Python, degree computer science. So as you can see right here, it has done, and it says based on your interests and skills, a suggested career path for you would be a software developer or a data analyst, which is quite good because this information shows that this user should be interested in any of this. So software developer because user likes coding, studied computer science. Data analyst also because Python is heavily used in data analysis, and computer science is also a required subject. Now, as you can see, this has successfully worked, and it just also gives it a little bit of more information. You can start by working on your Python skills and building a strong portfolio. You can also obtain a. Now, as you can see, it cuts out but you can also obtain a. Now, this is just because we gave it a max generated token count, but if we increase that, that should complete. Now, all of this works successfully. This is how you can basically fine-tune a model to whatever you want. So what we built here was a basic AI career recommendation, but you could build whatever you want. You could fine-tune on the model to do anything. So if you have a business, you could fine-tune a model to answer questions from your customers. You could basically use fine-tuning to do anything. So that is how you can easily fine-tune a model using Python and using gradient. So that is the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you enjoyed it and you learned something, please don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.